Well, thank you very much. Thank you for this warm welcome. It's a real pleasure to be here. I want to thank Dean for this deliciously short notice as well. I want to thank Dean Godson and the Policy Exchange for hosting us. 15 years and running. This organization has been injecting new thinking into this country's battle of ideas and shaping the direction of your nation and its very vital role. The reason it's a privilege to be here because I come from the think tank world, so I feel at home being here with you today. As Dean mentioned, I'm here with a bipartisan delegation. These are very important leaders who work in many different aspects in Congress, and we are on a trip to show our support for NATO. And that is one of the things that we're here to express east and west in Europe. We just had a pretty interesting election, actually. And I guess, well, you felt like you were being left out. So, seriously, this is what a time to be here. This just, when we got this, sending over on our phones yesterday, the decision the Prime Minister made yesterday, ratified today by our Parliament, what a very special time like this. And the one thought that came to my mind as soon as I watched what transpired yesterday and today is that this is a time for bold leadership, and Theresa May is certainly setting the standard. Hear, hear. Obviously, it's a historic event, and I know it will be a hard-fought election, but hey, you don't get any sympathy for us. In the House of Representatives, we do this every 2 years. So this is par for our course. Ultimately, it is up to the British people to determine their political future, as only they can. And honestly, as we can attest, we've got a lot on our plates, so I will simply say good luck, and please know that no matter the outcome of this election, the United States will proudly stand by your new government. Another way I see it, an American leader coming here has to do two things when they come to London. First, be thankful that we do not have Prime Minister's questions. And then second, we have to quote Churchill. You see, in our capital, we have a bust of Churchill we put in place 3 years ago. I do this big ceremony. We had some relatives there just this last year. And if you want to find out where the Churchill bust is in the United States Capitol, go to a tour guide and ask them to see the place where the steps are that the British used to burn down the Capitol in 1814. Because that's basically where the bust of Churchill is. They don't call this a special relationship for nothing. But etched in the bust of Churchill is an address to Congress that he gave just weeks after the attack on Pearl Harbor. In that speech, delivered at a very perilous time, he challenged our people to turn from the convulsions of the moment to the broader spaces of the future. Well, we are certainly facing one of those hinges in history today. Over the past year, all our countries voted for sweeping change. Some may say it's too much change. But if anything, what we are seeing is the renewal of first principles, of people reasserting their right of self-determination against arrogant and paternalistic elites. Donald Trump says it well: the forgotten men and women will be forgotten no longer. Shaking up the status quo takes time, and we have our share of speed bumps and roadblocks. As a Republican, and we're in a bipartisan delegation, we're going from having been a 10-year opposition party to within about 5 months' time being the governing party, and that involves certain growing pains. There may be an instinct in a moment like this to simply stay put, lower our sights, just confine ourselves to taming this change. Cross our fingers, maybe we can just aim for good stewardship. Or we can raise our gaze. We can draw on the character of our people and the pillars of our society: freedom, democracy, enterprise. What good is a compass if you don't have a course? What good are values without a vision? What good are ideas without leaders committed and determined to advancing those ideas? The way I see it, we should be measuring our special relationship not just by how we treat each other, but rather, how well do we leverage this moment to seize a real opportunity for our two nations? We should measure this relationship by how it promotes security and prosperity, not just for ourselves, but for the world. We were reminded of this obligation in the worst way 4 weeks ago to this day. The evil we saw at Westminster, the epicenter of European democracy, it rattled us to our core as well. We shared your pain. We mourned your victims. We know this horror all too well. We've seen it in New York, in Boston, in Orlando, San Bernardino, Texas, in a field in Pennsylvania. Churches, schools, city streets, institutions of government. Radical Islamist terrorism targets innocents in their everyday lives. And in doing so, as we all know, they seek to divide us against one another. They want us to point fingers. They want us to cast blame. They want us to cower in fear of leaving our homes and living our lives. They want us to lose faith in our values and our principles. They want us to lose hope. We will not let that happen. We cannot let that happen. The way we defeat this scourge of evil is by working hand in hand, by strengthening military and counterterrorism cooperation, by winning the battle of ideas, by demonstrating how our ideals of freedom, compassion, and peace will always prevail over violence and hate. Under President Trump's leadership, this is one of the messages we're delivering on this trip, we are rebuilding our military for the 21st century, and we are going to give the troops what they need to do their jobs. Here in Great Britain, you've made great strides matching words with action by enacting critical counterterrorism measures to provide the resources necessary to keep your citizens safe. Tonight, I also want to thank the British government. I want to thank our friends in Parliament for backing our recent action in Syria. The strikes ordered by President Trump, they were appropriate and they were just. They demonstrate our resolve and our refusal to stand on the sidelines as Assad slaughters his people and their children with the cruelest weapons known to man. You understand, as we do, that preventing the use of chemical weapons is a vital national security interest. So we must work together, the United States, Great Britain, and all of our allies to finally end this nightmare. Let's be honest. This is not just about Assad. We must also hold his enablers accountable. Iran, Russia, they too were complicit in these crimes against humanity. That's not all. Russia is determined to exploit weakness and opportunity wherever it may surface. As they expand and seek to expand their sphere of influence in the Middle East, they are continuing to challenge the sovereignty of our allies in Eastern and Central Europe. Their aggression has also taken on many other forms. Russia interfered in our elections, and they are interfering in elections here in Europe as we speak. We've learned a thing or two about their tactics in America, and we commit to sharing those lessons learned with our allies so that you can be better prepared. These actions that they're taking, these are not actions that are taken by a friend. So let's be clear about that. We cannot allow a provocateur in Moscow to threaten our allies or our interests. This is a direct threat to the post-Cold War global era. And we, when I say we, I simply don't mean just the United States and Great Britain. To truly combat Russian aggression, we need a strong NATO alliance. And we need that now more than ever. Our delegation just came from Norway, and later this week we will visit two more key NATO allies, Poland and Estonia. So I just want to be really clear so that there is no ambiguity here. NATO is essential. It has been and it remains critical to the safety and the security of the United States, of Great Britain, and of the world. And it must be strengthened. Member states should follow the lead of the United States, of the United Kingdom, Poland, Estonia, and Greece, and contribute 2% of their GDP to defense spending. And we should enhance our lines of communications to ensure that NATO countries receive the most timely and accurate, actionable information possible. And close security cooperation, it also needs to be coupled with enduring economic ties. Today, our countries boast the world's largest foreign direct investment partnership. America stands as the single greatest importer of UK goods. And there are those who say the United States and Great Britain, they're turning inward, that we're retreating from ourselves and we're closing ourselves off from the rest of the world. Let me join you in putting that myth to rest. We are determined more than ever to lead. We don't want China to write the rules of the 21st century global economy. We want to do that together. We want a level playing field for our businesses. Yes, we want free trade deals, but we want smart trade deals. They need to help workers. They need to raise wages. They need to create high-paying, sustainable jobs. And the good news in all of this, the good news is that these are the exact kind of jobs that you get from smart free trade agreements. And we must continue to sharpen the tools to combat the unfair trade practices that we experience across the globe. Now that Article 50 has been invoked, the UK and the EU will determine the best path forward over the course of these negotiations. We want the parties to come together and strike a lasting agreement. A strong UK-EU relationship is in all of our best interests. And in that same vein, the United States will work closely with our EU friends and chart a path forward on TTIP negotiations. In my prior job as chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, I was already working toward this end. At the same time, we are committed to working with President Trump and your government to achieve a bilateral trade agreement between the United States and Great Britain. This is one of the bipartisan messages I bring with me. I bring Democrats and Republicans here to this room, to this country today, to say that the United States stands ready to forge a new trade agreement with Great Britain as soon as possible so that we may further tap into the great potential between our two people. There's one last point I'd like to make. At times, we all get mired in the slog of governing. We can never lose sight of the battle of ideas, and that is why I'm really pleased to be here at the Policy Exchange. To secure freedom and free enterprise, we need to believe in these things. We need to apply these principles to the problems of the day and then defend them at every turn. So let me simply close by saying thank you. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your hospitality. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for working to ensure that our special relationship grows stronger far into the future. So thank you very much for having us today. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.